So you have learned web development, made a couple of projects using modern web frameworks, prepared your CV, and then you went to the interview. And everything was going fine until you started hearing those weird terms that you never heard before, like SSR, SSG, and CSR, and many others. And you felt that it was a completely different language that you never heard of. That happened because learning web development nowadays is not about knowing what to display on the screen, it's about knowing how it was displayed. So today, I will explain to you one of the most important web development concepts, which is rendering strategies. But before I start explaining the strategies, we have to know a few terms. The first one is rendering. So rendering means building the web page. Then we have the client. So the client is the app that sends requests to the server. Then the server handles those requests and sends the response back to the client. And those requests and responses are being sent when the app is actually running. So we call it at runtime. And the period when the source code is getting compiled into an actual app, we call it build time. And now, after we have understood those terms, to understand the rendering strategies, we have to ask ourselves two questions: where and when. And what do I mean by that is when I say that the where is client and the when is runtime, I mean that the page is rendered on client at runtime, which we call it client-side rendering or CSR. And it happens like this. The client sends a request to the server, then the server responds with an empty page, and the page is being rendered on the client. The second strategy is called server-side rendering or SSR, which is, as the name suggests, the server renders the page and then sends it to the client. And the other strategy happens on the server at build time. We call it static site generation or SSG. And now, after we have learned the basics, let's move on to learn some advanced rendering strategies. The first one of those is called streaming. And what it means is, instead of keeping the client waiting until the page is fully rendered, we send the partially rendered page and then we stream the other components as they are ready. Then we have the partial pre-rendering or PPR. In this strategy, the static parts of the page are rendered at build time. And there are some fallbacks for the dynamic content later on. So when the client sends a request to the server then immediately responds with the statically generated page. And then the dynamic content is rendered on the server and streamed to the client later on. Finally, we have the islands architecture. In this strategy, the dynamic content is divided into isolated islands, which can be rendered individually. And this can minimize the amount of JavaScript that is sent to the client. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.